Nick Chester,
And I'm Ryan Weaver.
and we did the Paris flood of 1910.
First, I'm going to talk about the weather patterns and what caused the flood. Here's a picture of people riding on boats in the flooded city. It looks like Venice, but it's actually Paris. The flood occurred due to an extended period of heavy and persistent rainfall in the region. While the exact timing of the heavy rainfall can vary, the flood occurred during the winter months. Winter in the northern hemisphere often brings increased precipitation, and in the case of the 1910 flood, the seasonal weather pattern played a role in making the situation worse. This precipitation saturated the ground and led to an increased runoff into the river systems. By the end of January 1910, thousands of people had already begun evacuating.
Next, we have the magnitude of the flooding and space and time. And here's a picture of the Seine River in Paris with a bunch of the most famous Paris landmarks laid along it. The Seine River in Paris has had a major flood about every century. The first of these major floods occurred in 1658, and since then there have been about three other floods in 1740, 1910, and 2016. There's still minor flooding between these years, but nothing too major. And the entire city of Paris was affected by this flood, with almost 20,000 buildings in Paris being damaged. Also, small towns and cities along the Seine River were affected, causing damages to fields and homes. The frequency and magnitude of these floods can definitely change due to climate. Climate change will alter rain patterns, which can lead to more frequent flooding and potentially stronger floods. Urbanization along the river and construction of dams and levees can also lead to changes in flood patterns. Next, we have the societal and economic impacts of the flooding. Here we got a picture of the Eiffel Tower and what it looked like during the flooding. The exact number of people affected by the flood is unknown. However, no deaths were reported. And because of the flooding, it is estimated that about 400 million francs, or $1.5 billion in today's money's worth of damages was done. Normal life was heavily affected because all the streets and subway stations were flooded, so people had to get around by boat. What was the most affected was the art world of Paris. Pablo Picasso, who had a studio in Paris at the time, had his studio destroyed and lost lots of canvases and other painting supplies. And the Eiffel Tower was also affected by this flood, as you can see in the pictures. Since the flooding happened so quickly, the power went out in the tower and people were stuck at the top and had to be rescued by blimps.
Finally, we're going to talk about the mitigation and adaptation strategies used in response to this flooding. Here's a picture of people walking on a small wooden bridge to avoid the water to get places during the flood. Several mitigation and adaptation strategies were implemented in response to this catastrophic event. After the flood in 1910, Paris realized its need for riverbank protection. The city invested in the construction and reinforcement of embankments along the Seine River to prevent overflow during future flood events. These embankments served as levees to contain rising water levels. Flood walls and barricades were erected in vulnerable areas to provide additional protection. The flood made the city realize they needed better drainage systems. Improvements were made to enhance the capacity of these systems, ensuring efficient water removal during heavy rainfall and flood events. To better prepare for potential floods, authorities implemented advanced monitoring systems to track river levels and weather conditions. Comprehensive emergency response plans were developed to facilitate swift and organized evacuations during flooding events.
And these are our sources. Thank you for watching.